It's Melvin, Yong.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of the two bills which seek to strengthen the regulatory powers of the SkillsFuture Singapore agency to deter the abuse and misrepresentation of SSG funding and schemes. However, I have a few questions and some suggestions. In a recent speech at the Singapore Perspectives 2023 conference, the Minister for Education highlighted how we needed to better support Singaporeans in their lifelong learning ambitions. I cannot agree more. Lifelong learning ensures that our workforce stays productive, adapt to fast-changing global and industrial changes, and become more resilient in both employment and employability. Singapore's movement towards lifelong learning must be underpinned by assurance that our training institutions are credible. I therefore support the proposals in the bills to strengthen SSG's funding and schemes, which will serve to enhance the credibility of adult learning programs as a whole. However, given the enhanced powers of SSG officers to enter premises, search for and seize documents, and to conduct interviews, I'd like to ask if the proposed new powers are to be given to all SSG officers, what type of training would be provided to those officers who are assigned these powers, and what sort of safeguards will be put in place to ensure that these new powers will be used appropriately and not be abused. When entering a premise against the will of the premise owners, the officers may face hostile resistance. Officers should therefore be adequately trained to exercise their new powers and the requisite rules of engagement. Mr. Speaker, beyond strengthening our regulatory framework to deter fraud, we also need to ensure that SSG-funded causes adequately support Singaporeans' changing aspirations. I would like to provide two suggestions. One, regularly review and remove causes and training providers that have poor take-up rates and poor reviews. And two, to onboard causes that support Singaporeans who work remotely. Let me elaborate. First, we need to regularly review and remove causes that have poor enrollment figures to free up funding for causes that Singaporeans actually need and want. We should also regularly review training providers for the conduct of their SSG-funded causes and the effectiveness of these causes. I'd like to ask, how often are SSG-funded causes subject to review? What is the average number of causes that had their funding status removed due to poor sign-ups? Does SSG require and take into consideration participants' post-course feedback? I feel that only by holding causes and training providers to a high bar can we attract more Singaporeans to use their SkillsFuture credits purposefully for training. Sir, we also need to change the way we fund causes to better support Singaporeans who work remotely. The work from anywhere trend has meant that more Singaporeans are working remotely, even if the work is done for a local company. We should move away from funding classes that are held in person and explore extending more funding to online courses. Let us support all Singaporeans, regardless of where they are based in their lifelong learning journey. Sir, the proposed amendments will help in deterring abuse and misrepresentation of SSG funding and schemes. As we work to improve the governance of our lifelong learning funding, we should also ensure that we support the changing aspirations of Singaporeans as we continue to encourage every Singaporean to be a lifelong learner. With that, I support the two bills.